simple to administer, but basically have a way of making it simple to administer. And I think we should also be looking at improving the multilingual aspects of it.
And I missed your name, I'm sorry.
Geraint, G-E-R-A-I-N-T.
G-E-R-A.
I'm from Wales.
Oh, Wales! Yes. I minored in Welsh.
Oh, did you?
Not that I can remember any of it other than
Da
the word I.
da iawn, I guess.
Hi, this is Scott Walpole. Of course, my cell phone's got to be ringing when I get past the microphone. Right now, I manage to build sites in Joomla 1.5 and now starting to do 1.7s. I've been working on caching on the server side to make Joomla speed up, and I'd love to see more caching features because as we get more and more high-level enterprise sites, that's going to become more important. I think some elements, like how the content's going to be done in the future, may lend support to that. But we can change maybe the bootstrapping a little bit. We can start caching elements in the page that don't need to be repeated over and over again. So that's the type of things I'm looking at. And also multi-site support from one Joomla admin area.
Duke Spear. I'm from the wrong side of the Zion Curtain in Park City, Utah, the place where we do still drink and have a lot of fun up there. Among the clients that I build for is Sundance. So the film festival, a number of their registration sites are Joomla sites, where anyone who wants to produce a film or somehow be involved in the creative process, this is how they get involved in getting the grants to go play with Robert at Sundance Resort sometime. He hit multi-site for me. That was probably number one on my list because I predominantly serve nonprofits who really want to not only centralize the maintenance of their software, they want to centralize the person who does it. So they really want to see kind of all that get concentrated. And so having a single site where the admin does all the installation would be very powerful.
The closest ones.
My name's Steve Britton. I've been working at Joomla since 2007. Just really good to be here to see to have some input on what Joomla is going to look like, hopefully a year from now. My big concerns, or what I would like to see happen, is I'd like to see the admin panel a little bit more user friendly. I know there's I hear from clients who also use other open source content management systems, and they say that it's a little tricky to navigate around the Joomla admin panel. So I'd like to see that redone. And I too am interested in the multi-site.
Hello, I'm Thomas from Germany, Elmshorn, near Hamburg. I'm working with Joomla and Mambo since the good old Mambo days. And yes, mostly I'm working with Joomla e-commerce, Virtual and yes, building shops and so on. Yes, my wish for the future versions of Joomla would also be multi-site and better structure of the files and on the server, like on Google Plus, somebody wrote putting the most of the directories out of the web root, for example, so that this is more secure and more cleaned up. And something else is that I would wish for the framework for the developer a bit more flexibility in regards to modules, plugins to integrate them better. Like today, you have to use these extensions from Peter van Westen, no number, to get things done. And I think it would be better when a better handling would be in the framework.
Can we zoom in on speakers with the camera? The field is asking for that.
Zoom in, please.
Can we rotate the camera to the speakers?
If it's a one-camera shoot.
Hello, it's me. Hi. Sorry, I'm on TV. My name is Hagen.
I was looking at the Twitter.
I'm writing books since 10 years or so, and since 1 year I'm writing 3 books. And I wrote Joomla 1.6 and 1.7 beginner's book in January and July, and at the moment I'm writing a development book. And what do I wish? I would wish a better communication between these kingdoms of Joomla, between all the abbreviations. I didn't get everything right. What does it mean? PLT, CLT, ABC, and all these things. So that's very complicated for me. And this simplifying thing is also in the administration, in the handling of more or less everything. And what I like is the idea of the separation between the framework and the CMS. And yeah, I would like to learn more about that, and I think that's a good way. Yeah, that's all.
I'm sorry, I had a little minor difficulties there, so I'm going to try to get everything here. You want a better team?
Simplify everything. More or less.
Power in simplicity.
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, I'm Alexandre Boussin from Octopus, editor of C-Blood. We come from France, and so for my mind, I think improving multilingual features could be nice. Simplify everything is a good thing. We can all say that, yeah. And I'm just a user, so in my mind, improve multilingual would be a good thing.
Hello, I am Sebastian from C-Blood. Hello. So at first, sorry for my English. I know that French people don't speak very good in English. So about the next future, I think we can help Joomla community about multi-seat, because we have included in C-Blood SDK the multi-seat feature, and we have some good idea about it. We can, I think, to help about the unified content model, because we have built SDK, and yes, and one thing more about ACL. We are thinking that ACL are not exactly finished in Joomla 1.7. There is a lot of things in the administration that is not finished, and so we hope to help about this. Thank you.
Hi. Hi, my name is Ruben Messling. I'm also from Germany. I'm quite active in the bug threads, so I'm mainly contributing and working with Joomla. Right now, I'm mostly interested in adding Ajax functionality and generally speeding up the perceived speed mostly of Joomla. Yeah, that's about it.
Hi, I'm Rob. I've been around since like 3 days before Dirt was made. I wouldn't even know where to begin with what I want in 3.0. I think about things probably very differently than most of you guys. Sunday, if you stick around, I'll be presenting a talk on unified content. I would really like to see a robust JavaScript framework for Joomla. For Joomla, not something else, specifically built for Joomla. This is something we're kind of playing with at eBay also, which I can show a little bit about because we've done some stuff for unified content. I fully endorse simplifying everything. I don't know what they were talking about with going back to being simple. I don't think Joomla's ever been very simple. And I'd actually like to see us throw out the menu system and go to pages, but that's a little bit deep, I think, so I won't get into that too much. And I think we skipped about 90 people right there.
Your friend. Robert, your friend.
That's okay, I'll get later.
Oh.
I'm going to try and move the camera a little bit.
Oh, alright. I don't know how to do it.
Hey, I'm Ofer, I'm from Israel. Few things that I've written down while I'm getting to New York for a long journey. So the first one is the one that I want to get involved with the UCN, Unified Content Management, that I think is missing. Is disadvantage of the Joomla. Another thing that I have get involved is the multi-DB feature. That is, I know that there is scope for that and still didn't manage into the trunk. I'm also the Hebrew translation of Joomla. One of the little features that the user asks why the installation is in Hebrew or any other language, but after installation you still in English. So I think that when the installation is finished, the user needs to be asked if he wants to install its language also.
Yeah.
For the front end or
For the
For
installer.
both.
for
For the front and back end.
Yeah.
Multi-DB third, and multi-site, it's also one feature.
Hi, my name is Bill.
Could you just hold on for just 1 second? Just trying to get 2 minutes done. Okay.
I am. The language things. I work at the United Nations, and I'd like to see ways to make this more integrated. It wasn't accepted as one of the standards there, and there's a number of reasons. Maybe we could address some there. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Ron. My specialty was converting PSDs, graphic artist PSDs to functional Joomla WordPress
I
site.
can't quite
Use
hear
the
you.
mic.
Can you hold it up a little closer?
You have a push to talk?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Basically, one of the things I would like to see is a integrated backup feature. Kiva Backup's really great, but I think Joomla should have a integrated backup that would enable transferring sites from staging sites to launch much more streamlined. And the other thing is, I really think that need a 1-year cycle rather than a 6-month cycle. I think a 6-month cycle is creating a lot of confusion as far as upgrading and maintaining on the client side, upgrading and maintaining their sites. I really think a 1-year cycle rather than a 6-month cycle.
It's actually an 18-month cycle. Because it's 18 months. It's complicated.
We simplify everything.
We can have an explanation of that.
Yeah. Okay, let me just add a couple things here.
Change the password and shop on product and obfuscate the administration admin shop on I hate when that obfuscate the administrative
And everybody else have a second pass as well.
We'll let everybody get in for more too. If we change the- I just can't do both at one time. So we're adding SHA-5 for password instead of the MP5, and then be able to change the name of the administration. Actually, the administrator. God, how long have I been doing that? Folder. Okay. All right, so we got Ron's thing, and now we're on to...
My name is Stuart Newfeld. I'm a local New Yorker, and I'm not yet a developer, but I'm working on it. I've built a number of sites over the last couple of years. I wanted to say that I particularly appreciate good documentation, whether it be for the actual Joomla or extensions. And I love books, but I've been particularly enjoying videos for learning, like those from Joomla Roadmap. I'm working on that, and at lynda.com on Joomla 1.7, the actual making, starting to become a developer, and Andrew Eady's. I also think that there are a lot of good extensions out with terrible documentation, and people who want to market their extensions would be very wise to follow the lead of those extension developers and some of this training that's in the video format. As far as where I want Joomla to go, I would say that I get a lot of small business clients who want to be able to maintain the site themselves to some extent, and some modules make at least certain things easy. Like I use it in my photo gallery, and many people who very easily can upload their photos and put them in order and title them, etc. But I would say the JCE editor really requires some skill to work on virtually anything on the site and not break it unless you know HTML, for example. And I think from the standpoint of allowing end users to maintain the site at least to some extent, not redesign that to any major makeovers, but at least it would greatly benefit to have an editor that is just doesn't require as much know-how. Also, the window in which you work with JCE and a lot of extensions, I'm talking about basically the back end of Joomla in general, I find myself like building a ship in a bottle kind of thing. I think we should, if not changing the products, at least being able to, if we can get to a full screen mode for the actual window and its little maybe ribbon toolbar at the top. Amount of merely scrolling windows up and down in order to put content into sites. So I think that would be I don't think that that is really a huge technological barrier to cross to get a more usable, productive editor for the site.
Okay, like JCE is a sort of a change from it actually ships with TinyMCE.
Right, well, that would
but
be,
it's the JCE.
I think it all applies to, well,
Yeah.
that seems to be the choice that most of my
To
friends
move
are
over
using.
to it. In fact, I've seen.
If there's a
some-
better one, it could be a different one.
Yeah.
Not to change.
But even
JCE.
that one you're saying is too complicated.
Not too complicated.
It's prone to break the
It's
template.
prone to very much break your HTML. And so I can't give it to a customer. Very often I start out thinking I can leave them with the site. They're very smart and they'll edit it, but you know, it can't stop a list from being a list, but it can't, it just breaks too easily. There are lots of other editors. Now I'm spoiled because I grew up 15 years ago on Dreamweaver, I guess. So, but there's got to be something, you know, there are open source editors that don't break. WYSIWYG.
And that editor window, you can increase that. But it's
Well, I know you can drag the lower right-hand corner down.
But you still end up with it way down the screen and all this stuff at the
But
top.
I find there's no good way. I mean, my best solution is I have 2 monitors and one of them is rotated at 90 degrees, so it's nice and tall. And I found that to be a huge help, having you know, an aspect ratio with the monitor rotated. But still, you know, when you go to save it, you have to scroll to the top of the back-end interface in order to save it. The button's way at the top. And that's what you do so often, is just apply or save and close now or whatever. That button belongs now where the others are, so you're not, if you just would film it.
This is useful.
I'm going to stand up so I don't look like Hagen. Sorry. I'm Robert Jacoby, president of ARC Technology Group, we're out of Chicago. We're looking to do multi-site, and we've already actually started internally some discussions on what the best ways, what the features and requirements that people are looking for. So we see 2 kinds of perspectives on multi-site. One of centralized administration of just the core and subsites, as well as sort of a publishing model, how we push content around to multiple sites. So we're very interested in doing a lot of things with that. We've actually started some of that internally. And I'll just pass it to Mike.
Hi, my name is Mike Carson from JoomlaShowroom.com. There's mainly 2 things that I'd love to see, and one is the multi-sites, and that's probably one of the biggest. The second one that I'd love to see is absolutely some more granular CCK features. There's so many other CCKs out there that can do it, but for those of us that want to keep everything lean and clean and keep it as much to the core as possible and keep it in comp content, we got to extend comp content and start adding some more features to it, because it's barely had any improvements in the past 6 years whatsoever. I mean, 6 years plus. And that's basically all I've got.
I'll just talk? Okay. My name's Elin. I've been around like some other people since the Mambo times. And wow, in terms of just kind of thinking about 3.0 on 3.5, I definitely am most excited about the UCM IT model and seeing what Rob's going to be telling us about. Or however it turns out, but I think that for sure is key to keeping the CMS as a really relevant, very important open source application, and it's going to open up a whole new world of possibility there of ease of use for end users. And I think the most probably overarching goal is to continue to have a CMS that works both for the one-person shop who's going to try to do the whole thing 100% on her own or his own, to something that works really well for people running site development shops, to something that's going to work at the enterprise level with a company with an in-house IT staff. And so being able to do that is really challenging, because the in-house IT staff needs to be able to do whatever highly customized work they need to do, and the one person who just wants to set up a website because they're running a street fair next week needs to be able to do what she needs to do, and to me that's the goal. I do think UCM is really central to that.
Hi, I'm Fred Sullivan. I'm on the camera. I'm a member here in New York of the New York City Joomla Group, and
dance and like step way back
I'm a member here
and duck down like 6 inches.
No,
there you go.
Perfect now.
So we're really glad to bring this conference to you today. Anyway, we'll struggle with the camera.
He's good, he's good. Perfect.
Okay. We'll struggle with the camera and see what we can bring live.
Now back up where you were.
No, it takes a bit time.
And type in your questions. We'll have people feed them in. Anyway, I mostly do integration, a lot of nonprofit work. I've been using Civi CRM with Joomla a lot. So the ACL is starting to bring us up to parity with Drupal, which everybody uses in that world, although Joomla is much better for it. The multi-site, though, is important to those types of users. I'm interested in the new unified content model. I think that would be great with the framework. Also, its implications in building something bigger and more complex and enterprise level, as well as ability to hook content in different ways. Then I think everybody else has great ideas. So was interested in listening to it.
Okay.
We have one from the web.
Oh, okay, let's get,
Steven Zegers.
hard to read it.
Thank you. Steven Zegers says, adding more features won't solve your problem, Joomla. Fix the issues with the CMS as is. There's such things called extensions. As long as I have the mic, I'll throw one in from one of my clients. Their frustration is they would like to see a level of abstraction put into the module system so that module positions can be defined somewhat more semantically for defining what a module is, and then do a one-to-one cross-reference to each template that applies to translate left into user one as appropriate.
And then, does anybody want seconds?
I've got a couple of extra ones. And you've not gone, Andrea.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Andrea Tower. I'm actually a newbie in here compared to some of you guys. I think it's been about 3 years ago that I said Joomla what? And I got into the Google Summer of Code, and that's within about 6 months or less than that, about 5 months of when I first started working with Joomla, and that's kind of how I got into the whole thing. So what I'm looking at,
We have goodies for
we have goodies.
We
have goodies.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, all you guys out there virtually, that you can't share in the goodies. But feel free to come up and grab anything if you want to. I guess what I would say for 3 point whatever, that my concentration right now is to try to get in there what people are interested in getting into it. I'm sort of in the mode of trying to expedite whatever is going on there rather than trying to push what I'd like to see. So that's where I am at this moment. Ask me again in another year for the next one, and I'll probably be somewhere different.
Okay. A little thing is the ability in the back end to group menu items so that you can basically reorganize the admin menus yourself so that it's more rationally organized for your own site. And when you're installing components, that the components can say, I'm associated with this other component, put me next to it, or put me in a subgroup with that other component.
Now, is this in the admin menu?
In admin, basically a way to customization of the admin menu. So a bit like Andretti's advanced back-end menu system, but with a bit more flexibility, so it can, components can suggest themselves where they should belong, and does that make any sense?
And that you can nail them to match your user's needs.
And yes, and yeah, you can reorganize them to match your user's needs, exactly.
Like in front-end.
Pardon?
Like in front-end, to have a similar
Yes.
visibility.
Yes, well, I guess it comes back also to the simplified administration. Like you can basically say that this, and this is not relevant to my clients. Just don't show it. And then the other one, from a coding point of view, is to learn from, to learn from Nuku, and to reduce the need for repetitive coding.
See my spelling here. Okay. All right. So then what I should do is probably
Just something that's fully installed.
Trying to read the stuff Joe wrote on his website.
Oh, this is Joe's?
Oh.
Yeah. So eliminate the item IDs and rework all requests to go-to pages regardless of the component being loaded. So eliminate the item ID from the site as a keyword. That helps. Whether through the unified content model or something other device, we need to have native CCK.
I'm sorry. Oh, a CCK?
A native CCK. However, we're going to solve this issue, but some kind of choose one JavaScript and CSS combiner compressor and implement it in the core. Make it possible to run Joomla outside of the web root. Remove draft components, com messages, com web links.
I'm sorry, you're going too fast for me. I guess outside of the...
Outside the web root.
Yep.
The JavaScript is about compressor, combiner, not.
Oh, that's the compressor command to compress.
Combine compressor and implement.
I got it.
And the last one is remove draft components, com messages, com web links. The Slum core is one other from Torkel. Torkel says Slim the core.
Yeah, this is going to be a sort of an ongoing balance that you do. Is on one hand you've got people who are saying on one. Here? Okay. On one hand, you've got people who are saying, let's add a native CCK, let's add this feature, we need that feature. And on the other hand, you have the equally valid thing of, let's not get this too bloated with a lot of stuff. So it is a balancing act, admittedly. Yeah, so let's look at it. And CCK is more important than web links. So let's do a trade or something, you know. But that is one consideration that we're always taking into account is we want these features in here, but every feature we add does make the core larger. So just need to balance that. Or make it easy to add additional, so you can have different types of distributions that go out or something. Okay. Yes.
In regards to the installer, what Joanne said before, I have the installer also on my list. I think it would be good to have a more flexible installer with an API that you can use, where you can, for example, add these things where to put the component, or also to make such things as one-click install from a list of components, and then it would be not such a big problem to deliver a slim Joomla core and add a list directly in the core with all the features Joomla offers, and then you just click. I need web links, I need CCK and whatever, and then you install it with one click. But it would be great to have this installer feature also as a developer, so that you can add your component or add a link for your component on your site and have a one-click install from outside of Joomla, for example, and that using the API would be a great thing. Then there are other things you can call from the installer, like Jaren said, that you can group things in the menu, or you can assign directly modules. If you find a module on the Joomla site, you can just use them and so on. That would be a great thing too.
It was Robert, right?
Thomas.
Thomas, sorry.
From Germany.
Germany, right. Sorry.
So yes.
Yeah. Point number 2 for the next time. We really do need name badges with great names on them.
I'm getting warmed up now.
Somebody will go.
Okay.
So here's a radical idea.
Can we stop over?
Why do we need an admin interface?
With ACI, you don't?
Because it makes us feel special. More powerful than the regular people.
Because when we have 10 web platform applications,
This is not an argument.
you need one nearby command.
I'm just saying, I think it's entirely possible to build a useful Joomla site without an admin interface. And I think it would probably be a much better experience overall. Maybe it's something to look into. I know a certain UI designer that's really, really, really excited about getting rid of it, so pretty sure he can lend a hand. Secondly, just to like kind of nip this whole like bloated versus not bloated thing, if you build something correctly, you can replace 3 or 4 or 5 extensions with one. You know, actually, the major thing that I would like to push for, now that I'm thinking a little bit more, is it's more of a mental thing than anything else, and that's throw out the black box model of extensions. That's our fundamental problem, in my opinion. If we can deal with that, I think we'd be a lot better off in general.
Can you explain what you mean by that? I'm sorry.
The black box model is a concept that every extension is a black box.
And you
and
can't integrate them together.
They're generally not meant or intended to be integrated together. Oftentimes they will interfere with each other. And it's just...
So they're not really being black boxes.
Well, they're all very black. They don't.
Yeah.
There's no
You know,
transparency to them.
they're more like black spiky boxes, and if you get too close, they'll stab you.
Black holes and stuff.
A few other ideas is, why do we need 3 types of extensions? You know, I could kind of go on and on. You know, a little bit of a perspective and being outside of the Joomla core world for a while.
I'd love to see the
kind of blows your mind.
in the template side of things, that this idea of all these emerging competing frameworks goes away, because we've upstreamed that a little bit and simplified it.
Wait, we don't need more frameworks in the world?
Oh my gosh.
I'm devastated.
I know.
I was just sitting here building a new framework.
JavaScript one.
To do what we like to show them to
build a framework.
So, like, I think one of the things that's going to happen is, if we really do unify content model correctly, by definition, a lot of other stuff will just fall away, right? We won't end up with 4 content extensions, 4 content components, we call components, anymore, because we won't need them in the core CMS. And if you want a more advanced application, you might not, I mean, I think our whole idea of what we think of as extensions is going to change quite radically, because if you're doing a simple site, I mean, I think probably most of you who develop sites for other people do develop front-end only sites. It's just you have to go to the back end to configure and set up, write the metadata for the site, and after that, your users probably on the whole don't ever even have to go into the back end anymore. And once we have unified content, we won't even have to, if you want to use the other content types, instead of saying, well, you can't edit contact on the front end, well, there won't be contact anymore, right? Because it'll be one thing, and it'll just be one of the content types. And so it really, the admin becomes really like admin on a server almost, right? Where it's really for managing the databases and, you know, looking at integration and other kinds of high-end things like a super user on a server as opposed to like a user, right? So I mean, I just think we're getting ready to go into a whole new world of thinking about what Joomla as a CMS looks like. And we have to kind of step aside from some of these some of our old ways of thinking still, and for me too, are just like shaping how I'm thinking about the future, but the future's going to be pretty different.
I got maybe a smaller one, less ambitious. What's really lacking in the ACL right now is ACL for media management. I can't have a picture for different users, and that's probably one of the biggest lacks in the current ACL implementation.
Yeah, it doesn't scale at an enterprise.
Which the ACL doesn't scale enough.
Try having 120,000 groups.
Yes, about ACL don't manage a lot of things in admin. There is only today article manager, category manager, and that's all. So we add a lot for module, banners, contact, and so, and we wish to put this in Joomla. So ACL in admin must be finished in work.
Couldn't fit that down in a few words.
And sorry, just one question. We say that if we include UCM in Joomla, a lot of extensions are not needed. So is it good or not for the Joomla ecosystem?
Actually, I was going to say that, and we're going to have to understand with that the Joomla ecosystem is going to change, just like it changed with 1.5. You have to be moving forward. Like extension developers can't not move forward, just like everybody else in the software world. You have to constantly be going and constantly be advancing up to the whatever is the current. And sometimes that does mean rethinking how you're thinking. If you have a complex extension, a lot of these complex extensions should be platform applications. They shouldn't be shoehorned into the CMS. But then the platform applications have to be able to talk to each other. And what I was kind of muttering to Rob is that the admin, I personally think the future of what we think of as admin now is in coordinating your platform applications. But that's just my idea.
One from the web. Oliver Karfus says that the user personas defined in the Joomla wiki encompass everyone, devs, integrators, and end users. And he feels that we need to refine that.
Does that not include everyone?
So that you have different groups of them, you mean, or something?
Can somebody read in the Ustream ones too? There's a few people on Ustream, but I'm not sure. There's a few people on Ustream that aren't on Twitter, I think, maybe.
Oh. Yeah, someone else want to do that?
Can somebody do that?
Or I can do it back and forth, I guess. Actually, why do you want me?
Or do you have the name of the person who was that said that one? Do you have a name?
It was Oliver Karfus.
Oh, okay.
Oliver K.
And is there anything from the chat on the?
No, we're caught up.
Okay. Yeah. So we've kind of gone over what people have talked about here. Would you like to
There was
say-
one more rejoinder,
Okay.
an agreement with Joomla Showroom on adding more features to content to turn it more CCK-like.
Okay.
Here, I'll do the.
So it's a comprehensive one, comprehensive solution.
Well, one wants a more drag and drop interface for modules. One person wants
Fixing the invalid token issue. Fixing the invalid token issue?
I'm sorry, I'm not.
Yeah, that's the question.
Invalid token issues.
Oh, fix the invalid token issue.
Why? It was so much fun.
We love getting those emails.
And another is having a visual map for module positions in the back end.
It's gotta be fun. Yeah.
Well, that's easy.
Everyone's here.
No, I have to.
They want
Slide back to the
like a
drag and
real
drop.
fold
Cloud
out
Access
map.
already does that in ours. That's up to template developers to do.
Okay.
Tags and comments? Tags and comments? Tags.
Tags, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that might be interesting, we're sort of hearing a few things that are coming through. CCK, either with or without the UCM. And certainly multi-site was very prevalent there in the beginning too. What might be interesting here is flip over to.
Also along the lines of Robert, the chat here says being able to administer content from the front end in line without needing the back end. So newbies could get started. Kind of like the Drupal.
And I'm just going to jump forward. This really messes my screen here. Skipping through, oh, that's where I want to be. I have no mouse. This is kind of a difficult thing when you're on Mac, not having a mouse. Oh, there, okay. There it is. I wanted to just, along with this that we just went through, I thought it would be interesting to see the top 20 idea of, now I've got
It's
my,
too
no,
bright.
I don't, okay. Next. Oh,
The screen
I'm
is
sorry.
too bright for me.
This is a problem. Here it is. Might have to do it in here. There, okay. These are the ones that we have on the ideas. It's back on here.
Just a couple more came in while we've been idling. Jeremy, also known as Gnome on the Run, thinks that Joomla needs to consider and be open to using distributions to make it a more versatile platform rather than just a CMS.
Okay.
Mark Bender just is happy to feel like he's here.
Okay.
Brian Tiemann can't get the chat to open, so he's missing a bit.
Tell them to use Roadmap.
That's where I just got it from.
Tell them there's nothing on the chat. It's all in Roadmap.
Yeah. We're caught up.
Okay, all right. If I can come out here again, let's try it again. Oh, now I'm gonna switch here. Okay. A little while ago, we instituted this thing called ideas.joomla.org, and it was a way that people could go in and suggest what they were interested in, and then start gathering interest in it, to see if there are other people who are interested, maybe do some coordination to see how many people liked it. So I just brought in the top 20 things that are on here, and you'll see that there are a few things that we've either been working on or are coming in, and some of the stuff we've talked about today. So the automatic core updates is getting a little closer to what we were doing before. It's certainly a lot easier now to be doing that. There's still a lot of work, and when we get Nicholas has got some stuff that's going in there that would have gone in earlier, but there were some database changes that we felt would be better to put in to 2.5 rather than putting them into a minor point release. That we have enough issues with the little changes there. The native content construction kit came in at number 2, which is one that we've also talked about here today. Built-in forms component was pretty high up there as well, that a number of people, I guess, were interested in. Multi-site was another big one that I was hearing today. And then the built-in backups. Built-in backups would be really nice. At least the one nice thing about that is it's really easy to do it yourself too. So. And then the automatic extension updates. Content versioning. That's something that would be a lot easier to do if we did go and have the unified content model as well. Native CAPTCHA in Joomla. Putting the JCE in core, though I'm hearing that maybe even that one is a little bit too difficult. So we might need something a little different from that. An advanced membership system. Seems a little specialized, but mobile device support. The multi-language, I think we were hearing more on the multi-language today too. And the multiple categories and the content tagging, that kind of goes in together. It's not exactly the same, but one can use them. The staging or the test site management, that one came out today too. jQuery MooTools selections, you'd be able to pick your own.
Obviously not suggested by developers.
Yeah, yeah. Or somebody who's got a site that some of his extensions need one and some need the other. I think play together might work on. The Nuku integration. The URLs without needing the article ID numbers. And the commenting. And then again, the ability to change the administrator folder name, so that it wasn't quite so easy to find it. I think that was the top 20 there. So one of the things, let's see. Back to There's no nice little clock here to say what time it is. Okay, so 11:30. So we've got about half an hour left. So what I want to do really quickly is take about 5 minutes and go through some of the stuff that you might already be aware of, but just some things that we've announced that hopefully are coming for 2.5. What we're kind of looking at, hoping to get into 3.0 as of a little while ago. And then look at what do we want to do with the breakout sessions tomorrow? What do we want to see if we can actually get done on some of these things? Find some of the ones, I think we heard like the multi-site and some of the others that have some common interest. this back, I would really like it. Okay. This is what we were looking and hoping to get into 2.5 in January. Won't necessarily all get in there, but and that's got some of the stuff we were talking about, a module where you can automatically notify the users when there's an update that's available.
On the admin
Which is in the
dashboard or elsewhere?
tracker, which is in the feature tracker right now, waiting for testers, so.
Okay.
So if somebody would like to get in there and test so that it's all ready to go and we can just
So it's
pop it
captured
right
in
in
more,
there.
by the way.
Okay. Improve the update process to support updating of LTS and STS versions. That's been going on and is an ongoing process. We just had the newest one where we improved, you know, when we moved from 7.0 to 7.1, there were issues, a few minor issues trying to do the actual, not quite one click going from 6 to 7. And then you had to do some of the database things that were a little weird depending on what of many ways you could update.
I mean, the key thing, can I just?
Yeah, go ahead.
The key thing is that
Give her the mic.
people, so all the, like, we're all, those of us who like hang around, like, dealing with people's problems and fixing bugs, we know that there's been a few issues with the automatic updating. Not that it hasn't worked, it's worked beautifully, but if people don't press the button and do the update, and then we make a change in which introduces a dependency for later updates. So what happened is before 1.7 came out, we wanted to add a feature to the updater that would let us update the database, which wasn't in there. So then how do you do that? It was actually very complex and it required 2 steps. So we actually did an extra release of 1.6.3, I think it was actually only done, or 4, I guess, was only done in order to have people have the code to have the post light after install, so that then the database updates could run, because we knew there would be database updates in 1.7. But then what happens is you get people who don't update. So now every update now, you're going directly to the newer version. So you're skipping that intermediary step where you got the code that allows the database updates to take place. So what for the bug squad, the major activity for like the past 3 weeks has been yet again trying to figure out what do you do with users who are not up to date and who are updating. And even though when Mark gets here, there's like, that's a lot of trouble for people who don't follow instructions. But the people, I mean, that's the trouble with software and end user software is people are not going to follow the instructions, so we have to just work that out. But I mean, right now, if you don't need to do a complicated upgrade, it works really well. The only thing is if you skipped that crucial 1.6.4 update, and the other thing is if you have low bandwidth or for some reason, or if you're trying to update with a language pack, because then you can't do, on the whole, that's not coming from Joomla code, that's coming from, if it's coming pre-installed with language already, that's not usually coming from Joomla code, so you have to do a slightly separate update process. So that's something that, believe me, we're hearing a lot about and we're working on.
Actually, I put this up here. Components make it easier to create and maintain the update sites. And I'm assuming that's for the third-party people that, now that in 1.7 we've got the ability to check to see if there's an update available, that requires the third parties to have something listed that it can go out and it can find. So getting something in there to make that easier for the third parties to hook into that whole API stuff. Implementing the open search in the search component. Do you want to do just a brief little?
Open search is a format, an XML format that's been around for a rather long time that allows combining search engines from many different sizes into one meta search engine. And the description format for these search engines is already in the Joomla 1.7. But we don't currently allow search results to be output by Joomla in a format that can be accepted by those meta engines, and that will be the next step for 2.5.
And then, of course, we're always looking for performance enhancements and things. And then the new search engine in the Joomla core, that's mixed in with that.
Well,
is that
that's a
separate?
totally separate.
That's a separate one. Okay, so do you want to explain?
Well, yeah. Okay. So, as probably everybody knows, the current core search is pretty lame. It just is basic MySQL search function that gives you whatever it finds first. It's not ranked in any way or anything. And Rob and others had built a fantastic search engine for Joomla called Finder for 1.5, and were kind enough to contribute that to extension to the core. And currently there's a team of people working to update it to be ready for 2.5. There's a repository on GitHub now that you can. I wrote a blog about this last week, so if you go on community site, you can find the links to the repository. It's pretty. It'll be ready for 2.5 for sure. Michael Becker is working on it. Except that, yeah, there's still a few issues we're working out, but he's also added a lot of kind of polished features that take advantage of some of the new stuff in 1.6 plus. So, like for example, integrating we have to integrate ACL into Finder. So he's been working on that lately, and I think it's pretty exciting because it's like having real super search, with ranked findings and suggestions and all that, and it's built right in. And one of the things, I know there's some international people here and listening, is to think about, I already talked with the translation coordinators some about how to integrate other languages into Finder in the most effective way. So that's something people might want to think about, whether we're going to hold, like for example, Finder uses a common words algorithm to lower the rank of common words in your search results. So right now the core comes with a list of common English words. So what are we going to do about common words in other languages? Are they going to be in the core, or are they going to come in as part of language packs? Is that too complicated to add to language packs, and so on? So there's a lot of, and also about stemming search stems. So, but the good thing is no matter what, even without using all the potential features for languages, it's a better search just to start with. And then as we go forward, we'll have lots of time to work out all the details of how to use it most effectively. And I'm going to pick Rob's brain while he's here.
Okay. And then looking at implementing image manipulation in the media manager based on the new platform features.
So I can tell you, there are people working on that too.
There are people
I mean, the
working.
JVS has had a little discussion about that too.
Okay.
There's a couple of people who are working on at least basic implementation.
And they can probably use testers.
Absolutely. Well, and Lewis has actually asked for the new, because there's a new in the platform repository right now. There's the JImage library, and
What?
It hasn't been pulled yet.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It says a pull request. It's in Lewis's repo. So, but he asked people to test it. We posted to the platform mailing list, asking people to test it. And so if people were interested, that would be awesome. To
Okay.
just, you can just so easy in GitHub to just grab a library and throw it, just put it right in your folder and you can test.
All right, so if you want to test some of those new features, and that's for people who are developing, right? It's
Yeah.
not like end users, but it's so that you can use that within your extensions.
Yeah.
So just grab a pull from
And if people
Lewis's
want to help
repository.
with implementing in the Media Manager itself, then that's something, well, when Mark, well, you could talk to me or Mark, and we can tell you who's working on it.
Okay, and then we're always fixing bugs.
Mm-hmm.
Is this list fixed for you at the moment? Is it
For 2.5?
Yeah.
Well, we're in feature freeze in a month, so.
Okay.
I mean, if anyone else, the feature tracker is open 24/7. If people want to put features in, I mean, I have stuff in the feature tracker, a bunch of us do. And I know I certainly hope to have more, but that's the reality is that it'll be feature freeze.
I think it's
approximately
November
10th is the date we're
I
aiming
think November 10th.
Like right after the basic idea of the release cycle is between these 6-month minor iterations, we will have 2 maintenance releases. So like ideally it would have been 1.72, 1.71, 1.72, and then we'd be going to 2.5. We had to do this extra one, but that's why we said 0.5. Right? So we have a little wiggle room. Because you never know if you have someone might be able to find out your secret word, which is what the security release fixed. So that date, that November 10th date, would be like right after the final maintenance release of 1.7. So that's the window for that point feature mergers will start, and all along we need testing. So as I mentioned earlier, the reCAPTCHA in the core was actually or CAPTCHA in the core was actually approved for 1.7, but we didn't really get enough testing that Mark didn't feel confident that we could put it out into the field. So it's really, really important that people who are like Joomla professionals, so to speak, including like someone like me who doesn't really get paid to do it, but people who are serious Joomla people need to test these features because we can't risk like putting out something that's not going to work. Everybody here.
And one thing
depends
that
on-
looks like that's been kind of exciting that we've been working on lately is something that Ian created, which is a way that you'd actually can create. You just install an ordinary component, and then you can list down all of the patches that are there, so that you could, when we get this actually working and we're on GitHub and the whole thing, non-coders will be able to go in and do some of the testing, because in a way I think it's good to get non-coders in there because they're going to then try to do it the way that they would normally be doing it, not trying to do it the way that they're thinking that the thing is going to work. And so I think that's important. You definitely wouldn't want to only have non-coders testing, but I think getting that non-coder component in there would be really good, because then we can maybe get a little bit more testing happening.
But also for features in particular.
And features.
I mean, I think more than for bugs, for features, having non-coders test is really important because there's often UI issues, and there's often ways that users think about things in unexpected ways.
Right. And so all this would require of people is that, number one, they know how to install Joomla and can install an extension, and they can go in there and click the one that they want to try. So that'll be really great when that gets totally going. So in terms of sort of where we are with the planning, if you want to call it, in the Joomla 3 series, I should change that. And like I said, I put 3.0 in July 12. That's mostly just to make sure that people realize this is not the one that's coming out in January. This is looking beyond this next release. And July is not when the end of this happens. This is kind of the beginning of what's going in. So when you're trying to get the features in as we're getting up to that, but of course we'll be having development for the time after that as well. Back in November of 2010 was when we first started thinking that the next big release of Joomla, we wanted to really focus on the content and get it so that you could find the content, you could manipulate the content, and be able to really use it. And that's been delayed because 1.6 got delayed, and then we're going to think about putting it into 1.7. But as everybody knows, 6 months is not a lot of time to get everything in there and done. So moving it out further gave us, more time to be looking at it. So within that would be getting searching and tagging, looking at those kind of things. And then just being able to manage the metadata and the titles and content descriptions better. So these were the things that back a year ago we were thinking that we would be looking at that point for 1.7. And then at the joint summit, we looked at these again and we said, this is kind of the direction that we want to be heading for the next big release. So that's just part of what we're looking at. What I think might be a good thing to do here, let's see. We had a couple people who wanted to do a couple of lightning talks, and I know you've mentioned kind of those ideas that you had before. Would you like to say a little bit more about it, or did you say everything that you were interested in saying on those subjects?
Sure. Well, I had the Ajax talk proposed, and after we had a couple of other JavaScript things proposed here, I would suggest merging all those into one big client-side scripting. What's supposed to happen in the future in this field with Joomla for one lightning talk, or one breakout session.
And Scott, did you want to say anything, or did you get yours in?
Sure. Sorry. This is very important getting food. Okay. One of the problems we're having in the internet, of course, is the evil hackers. And I think that's one of the most important things, to be more secure. And while MD5 was a really wonderful protocol at one time, with a fast processor, MD5 is very soon to be not as secure as we would like. So we really have to move up the chain for encryption. Also, if people don't know where the door is, it's very hard to pick the lock. And most people know, if they know it's a Joomla site, and you can download a Fireplug plugin, they'll tell you what it is, then you know it's administrator, and you can begin to hack. And yes, we can put HT access and other things in, but those are impediments to our general users who don't really understand that. They get all confused. Why did I put a password in twice? We know how hard it is to even get them to use real passwords. They love using password 1, 2, 3, and they don't think anyone ever will guess that. So those are the type of things that need to be moved up. The next other important thing is caching and speeding up sites. And people expect faster and faster response, and as we're adding more video and more content that takes more time to download, we have to find ways to speed up those items, especially since a lot of it's going to be going over mobile networks. And forgetting progressive designs that make it mobile first. But one of the things we have to figure out is how to make it so that common elements, let's say your logos, your toolbars, or navbars and other things, are cached so they don't have to be built each time there's a page request. And there are various methods to do that. One thing we're running on a server to speed things up, besides Xcache, which obviously is a PHP cacher, we're running Varnish, which is a post-processor cacher. And that also can speed up, but with dynamic content, that sometimes has some difficulty. So those are the type of things I like to see done in the future. And as a lot of people said, multi-site is very important. More and more getting clients that are going to have 2, 3, 4, 5 sites, Sometimes they're just vanity sites. Sometimes they're sites for a particular sales program or sub-products. There's one of my clients, we have about 200 sites we'll be building eventually, and for each one they have a separate login. It'd be really great if they have one place to log in. By using ACL, they'll know what kind of content those people have to access. And as someone else mentioned earlier, you can choose whether or not to have that content across all the sites, some of the sites, or none of the sites. And it helps people with that, because that's what we're moving towards, more and more to a content type sites. What else was that? That's about the items I have on my list. And I think we're, in terms of competition, on the downside, we have WordPress, and we know that's okay with just blogging for people with no budgets. But we need to get a little more sophisticated in what we're doing and move to the next level. I think the universal content, or I forget what you're calling it, I think that's a great move to treat all content as one type of content. That will give us a lot more flexibility how we display everything. We will no longer have to worry about having plugins to get content from other sites or making sure it can put in. We'll be able to go into a module position, say, display all this for us. And that's essentially my thoughts. I unfortunately missed part of this because we're running down getting our supplies. But looks real good to me, and it looks like the roadmap is really stable. And I think it's a lot of new things going that we really need.
So the next step that we want to do is let's figure out what we want, at least get started on what we'd like to do for our breakout sessions this afternoon. Two of the things I noticed coming through with a multi-site in the UCM or CCK, and that might be our pizzas. Can somebody check this for the pizzas?
Yes.
Andy.
Oh, sorry.
So it's like really two parts, because the UCM is kind of,
So
it's the library.
Do UCM first and then maybe CCK after that or something like that?
But then
every CCK has at its core a unified content.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So then there's there's the platform part, which is what. No, I'm just saying, like, we shouldn't put. There's UCM, and we're saying a UCM, but then all CCKs have like Rob said, have the UCM underneath. So, like, we can kind of separate out the two things in a way, or not, but to think about, it's more for the CMS, how do we implement actually having a site and an application that users can use that builds on and takes advantages of the libraries that are going to the platform.
Okay.
Do you want to add?
Yes. We won't break out right away.
First of all, I apologize. I'm going up and down in energy. I got like 3 hours of sleep on the plane, so ZenCon wore me out. So I think it's really important to distinguish these things so we understand and we can all talk about the same thing and actually know that we're talking about the same thing. So I'll just define it like this. Unified content model is what the platform would have. The CCK is what the CMS would have, right? So the unified content model is just an abstract way of dealing with stuff in a database. And the CCK would be a way to actually manipulate exactly which fields they're stored where and how those fields should be dealt with, etc. It's the visual presentation on top of an underlying architecture. And on that, I'm a little bit...
What about validation libraries?
Visual and interaction.
I'm a little bit mixed up in all of this because I am giving a talk about this on Sunday, so I don't want to spill all of the beans today. But I'd be happy to talk about it, in general. But I'll save the exact details of everything that we've done for my talk on Sunday. So anyway, if you guys want to talk about that some more.
Of course, how you implement a CCK would be dependent upon what you've got underneath it. So that's why I was thinking you can't really talk CCK if you haven't got the
Which is what
other piece. So that's why I put them, like there's a dependency
But I just
there.
want people to understand that there's
Yeah.
two. But we could talk about what we'd like it to look like
Yeah.
in the sense that it's an interface, right?
You can still talk
Is that
about.
the
You talk
executive
about
session?
what
Yeah,
it looks
yeah.
like
One
without
of the
necessarily
things
seeing
we
libraries.
one of the things we do want to avoid is what happened with 1.6. I guess we're.
Please.
I have been warned. I wasn't here for it, where we came up with a lot of specifications, and then we didn't have anybody to write
Exactly.
the actual code from that, and the people who were interested in writing the code really didn't like
agree with
those,
specs.
didn't agree with the specs, so they didn't want to do that. So
Again, this is still open source.
Yes.
Most of these people are not paid.
yeah. So people are going to work on what they want and the way they want to do it. So that's part of what this is kind of identifying people and making sure we get them together so that those who know what their users really want to do or something and can talk with the people who will be writing it and getting it all together. Yes.
Thank you. Just one question. Can you put again your slide, your last slide? Thank you. And maybe Eileen can answer. I am just a little afraid. You speak about, yes, thank you. You speak about for the version 3 about searching, tagging, and so. My question is how we can think about this without the CCK and the field, the storage, all this.
For 1 for the current. Well, we're gonna have searching, right? Right? We will have searching because like I said, we have already made a lot of progress on integrating and migrating Finder, and so we already have very powerful searching. And part of the reason it was relatively easy to integrate Finder is because it used a lot of the libraries that ended up kind of coming into the current platform. So in terms of tagging, I think what part of what Finder is going to do is make it easier to tag, to use the tagging system. I myself have been working on labels and seeing if I can make labels work in 1.7 as a tagging system. Well, or whatever. I have. But anyway, we need a tag. I think tagging is going to continue to be used from an extension, but it'll be more powerful because you have, well, two things. One is that it's the search itself is better, and you're able to integrate the search with your tagging system in a way that you can't with the current POM search. And the other thing is just in general, it's so much easier to add those extra fields into places. So if you, with JForm, and one of the things for 2.5 is to make sure that the places where it isn't super, I mean, you can do it anywhere now, but you have to do a few extra lines of code, and they're in some places, and so hopefully in 2.5 you won't need to anymore. But it's so easy to just put a plug-in and add extra fields and either save your data or not, and it's and either put it into like a regular database field or put it into a JSON string that you can't. It's just like a totally different way of thinking about even tagging, and I think that's one reason why people have not even begun to take advantage of some of the features that are in the current CMS.
And I'm afraid I got distracted there with another call about the pizza, which is downstairs.
So you're looking for ideas for the breakout sessions?
Yes, that's what we're
Can I
doing. And so I just wanted to catch on here. So did that come out as a breakout session?
Yeah, I
you want to look
would
at?
say for sure. I mean, it's not going to, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. For 3.0 though, it's a totally, once you have it's all related to content, but it would be great for people to talk about what they'd like, especially the end product to look like in terms of tagging, like what are the
Just the tagging piece of it?
Yeah,
Okay.
why not?
Yep. No, that's good. Okay.
What the UI should look like. Oh. That's where we have
I think there was one over here first.
Can I make a suggestion of a session about multiple distributions, pick and choose which elements you want, simplified
That was that,
interfaces.
that distribution with checkboxes kind of a thing?
Distribution checkboxes that's all tied in with the option for more a basic interface and advanced interface.
And then I saw.
It's a quick question.
Okay.
With UCM, CCK, and tagging, is there going to be 3 breakout sections or 1 because they're
It's all related.
It should be one.
Well, yeah, what we could do is we could just make that a whole series so that you've got 1, 2, and 3 in a track.
Well, maybe I'd suggest, like, you could think about content, make content a theme.
Content's
It is
a
the
theme,
theme,
yep.
right, of the release. But content has different aspects. There's code, there's UI, there's functionality, there's like, what is it actually gonna mean? What should the goals for the CMS be in terms of what the content, how the content model is implemented? So you could break it up that way more in terms of like UI, code, and.
We probably don't want to put them opposite each other though.
Well,
people.
Yes and no.
Okay.
The stream is concerned, what color is 3.0 going to be since
up to,
Mitchell concerned.
blue was
Oh, blue was this
Blue.
one, green was the other one. I don't know, was kind of
Orange.
purple?
Orange.
Oh.
No, we have to rotate back around to the,
Yeah.
once we get to the fourth color.
Right. Well, I think we should have, the whole series should be the same color instead of like if we were changing between 1.6, 1.7, that should all be the same color. Makes it clearer too with the series. Okay, so other breakout sessions, what are people interested in really digging in on this time? Come on. All right.
Multilingual?
So multilingual. What was that?
Multilingual. Want to talk about that? Yeah, multilingual would be.
Who'd like to talk about multilingual? Do we have a few?
That's also related to content.
Absolutely. It's all related to content.
All related to content.
It's also all related to the web. So it's like, sooner or later, you have to separate out into separate topics in content. So.
Can we talk about getting rid of the admin interface?
Well, who would like to go to a breakout session on getting rid of the
You don't want to
admin?
copy Drupal, do you? No, it has nothing to do with copying Drupal. It has everything to do with building it
Why don't you just have one on usability?
Yeah, I know, it's supposed to
Just
be.
call it usability.
Usability.
Yeah, they're all the same.
Because there was the whole simplified.
There's that whole KISS theory, keep it simple and stupid.
Okay.
And stupid, emphasize stupid.
Okay, so how many people are, this is just a vague, let's see if there is interest in all of these, doing something with a multi-site, getting together in a breakout, got a couple on that. At UCM, CCK, tagging, all of those 3 guys, we got people on that too, okay? And the distribution, how we do different distributions with checkboxes and the options and
Actually, can I just say, the distribution thing and the multilingual thing, I think are.
Those are tighter.
I was going to say, the most important, to me, it seems like the most important multilingual feature needed
is that
to be able
distribution piece.
To do the distribution piece, and if there's people who want to talk about how to implement that in the CMS, same way. That's builder. Exactly.
Okay, so that kind of goes in with that one a little bit too. And then the usability piece. Which includes, you're gonna be at all the sessions, Rob. I hope you're really like up and active this afternoon. Okay. All right, is there anybody who didn't raise their hand? Okay. Did you get the pizzas, Scott? Were they?
They're somewhere in the freight elevator. Because they may have trouble getting up because they don't have strict insurance to walk into an elevator. They need auto insurance to walk into an elevator.
Is there anything I need to do? I got a second call about it.
Are they calling back to see if they're lost? So
But you talked to him after I talked to him, right?
No, I didn't speak to them. I just answered the call before, and that was it. And they said downstairs.
Because they said they needed somebody to come down and get this stuff.
Yeah, I went down to them, and they sent them up already.
Well, our biggest issue appears to be lunch. There
I
is
think
also
lunch is the big issue right here.
There is a request from the web. Jeremy Wilkin would like to see more ideas and discussions from everyone, kind of ferreting out some of these ideas and statements. His concern is it seems like things are decided and won't change, and I think he wants to see a little massaging going on.
Okay, does anybody want to do the pizzas or do you want to take over here?
Can you see if you can figure out what the pizzas are? Since it's with the freight elevator?
Here.
Steve.
Speak your phone.
Microphone. Go to the freight elevator.
Okay.
Meet them at the elevator.
All right.
From the web, it says two
We'll
groups,
find
make
it.
it simpler and make content modern.
That's true. That probably would be smart simplicity.
I didn't hear the second.
Make content modern.
Oh.
Oh, I got it again. Okay. Hi, where are you?
Does that sound good, actually, to me, like two groups? There's not that many people.
Hello.
You could just kind of split into two groups. One that's more focused on basic UI, usability stuff, and one that's more focused on content. With that needs what.
I think that would be a good one.
No, I mean, it's not that, I mean, it's not, we have 100 people.
Yeah. I can get to. We have another camera here, so I can broadcast two groups.
Yes, we're on.
This is very complicated pizzas. Okay. All right, so anything more from our virtual audience there?
The previously stated concern about just having more discussion on the topics.
Okay.
Kind of fleshing out what some of these ideas really mean.
Yeah, okay. That's part of what we're doing this afternoon.
Have one talk about the process. So like the yes, there's stuff like that. But yeah, we are talking about the roadmap and talking about ideas, but I have no clue what this means now for street it up.
So, Andrew, isn't the goal for this not to just talk about things, but to actually
Lay out a map?
Yeah, we'd like to actually get some stuff done.
Yeah.
Is what we're.
So why are we going to smaller groups?
Well, at the time we were doing this, there was going to be 50 of us.
We can get more done.
Yeah.
Why don't we just start
You
doing
can
that?
you can actually work in a much bigger group.
Let's get started.
Yeah.
If you want to actually have a work session, you can't have huge groups.
Right. I mean, with this amount, we probably don't need to drop down to more than, half or something.
You were saying two, what you were.
Yeah.
You were saying you could just maybe that idea of two groups.
Yeah.
One focusing on content, one focusing on UI.
Yeah, and we have the ability to stream 2 lines, right?
Yeah, I think so.
If we need to, so that people
We have
could-
2 cameras here.
Yeah.
We'll have to work on
So we can do something like that.
I think we've got 3
You think
distinct
there's
sessions
3?
there. I think you've got multi-site.
Multi-site is a little different than the other.
Then you've got content, in inverted commas, which would be UCM, CCK tagging. I would argue multilingual sits in there as well.
We've also
and then
got
usability and distribution goes together.
We've also got 3 sections, so we can divide it up a little bit that way
I
too.
think there's
three
three
groups.
So those can be your 3 sessions of them.
Yeah, or we could do. We can have 2 running at any one particular time. So we have 6 chunks of time to do it, and we've got Oh, gosh, look, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things up there, but,
Well, UCM and CCK is.
Yeah, you're splitting things
And-
again.
And tagging would go as that.
And distribution
Yeah.
and link will go together. so.
yeah.
No, I don't think so. No, distribution, multilingual is, to me, is nothing to do with distribution. Multilingual is to do with content. It's basically, you've got a site that's catering to 6 different languages. You want to be able to switch from one language to the other. It's not to do with translations or distributions of language. It's to do with the content, the language
There's
of the
a
content.
sort of, there's a front end and a back end issue almost, sort of.
No, there's a content issue about multilingual content.
Yeah.
And there's a distribution
Distribution.
issue about how you get
the localization.
a
What's the
localized pack
Yeah.
in your language and how.
Yeah, and
if
so-
there's, you know.
So are you talking about the pack piece of it, or
No,
the?
I'm talking, for me, when I suggest multilingual, I'm talking about content.
Okay, yeah, that is 2 separate things, yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, so, let's see, let's get into, we can actually talk about it. What I would say would make sense is if we go ahead and start breaking for lunch now. It is, anybody have a watch on them or anything? What time? 12:14, okay. So we'll come back again around 1 o'clock, that should be good, so that's about 45 minutes. And we'll be doing these particular breakouts, and we'll announce at the beginning what the breakouts are, and hopefully have streaming for both of the breakouts at that point. Okay.
Very good, thank you.
My system again, see if I can get my cursor back.